What's up, everybody? You are listening to See Through Panel, a comic book discussion podcast. My name is Cole Harvey. I am here with Fahed Rahman.
Hello, everyone.
Today, we are talking about doing another list episode, and we're talking about our favorite non-Big Three superhero comics, and what that means is the Big Three being Image, Marvel, and DC. As an American, it's really hard to find actually indie superhero comics, so most of mine are like Dark Horse, IDW, which is to me almost the same as the Big Three, but it's hard to find.
It's really stuff. I was really kind of like struggling there a little bit as well. So yeah, that was the aim of the episode. I'm not too sure there's probably, if readers do get in touch, listeners do get in touch, it probably, well, what about this one, about that one? Yeah, please send us your submissions.
Yeah,
because I was struggling to come up with some myself.
Definitely. All right, we'll start with one that's a little less known because the rest of mine are pretty obvious. I'll do a Dark Horse title first. It's called The Black Beetle, written and drawn by Francesco Francavilla. It is, I guess, technically less of a superhero, more of a pulp hero, like a Doc Savage type deal or something like that. Really, there's not a lot to say. It's just like pulp action, constant action, kind of in the vein of The Spirit. If you've seen Francavilla's work before, he actually drew The Spirit for a while, which is why I make the comparison. It is just like a street level hero in a ridiculous outfit, beating up bad guys, no superpowers, I guess there's a little bit of like magic-y stuff, but he's just a guy that punches stuff. And Francesco Francavilla is a very classic looking artist. He really reminds me of like those old pulp comics, and specifically his color work. If you look, he does a lot of like movie posters and stuff, so you might have even seen his work if you've seen anything like that. But yeah, his art is to die for, and he does, I think, a 4-issue miniseries and then a like little graphic novel, and The Black Beetle. I love that stuff.
Do you want that's a little bit similar to that, and that's the Lobster Johnson comics from the Hellboy universe. So again, very much, I'm not too sure if he counts as a superhero, but is very much this pulpy noir character that initially exists in the Hellboy universe as a fictional character, but actually turns out to be someone that actually does have an existence within the Hellboy universe. I kind of love the throwback nature of the character and how it's a little bit meta. So Hellboy as a character, Lobster Johnson as a character is a recurring thing that appears as stories within the Hellboy universe, but then he eventually appears in his own series of trade paperbacks as well, which are really enjoyable, as is probably everything in the Mike Mignola's Hellboy universe as well.
That is fantastic, because my next one was actually just the Hellboy universe in general. It's like a superhero universe to me, basically, because at some point people are flying and they're fighting kaiju and they're punching them in the face. It's pretty much a superhero universe at some point. And yeah, that was my whole thing. And I was specifically thinking about Hellboy himself and Lobster Johnson. I try to keep a shelf of every existing Mignolaverse book, and I think I've got almost all of them right now. Because I love that. Don't think I've talked about it much on the show, but I love the BPRD and the Mignolaverse and Abe Sapien and all the series, and they just put out a Lobster Johnson omnibus, or I should say they probably is out by now. So there's a new big hardcover of all the Lobster Johnson, and it's going to be here in like 2 weeks. So now you've got me pumped about that, and I completely had forgotten. But that's my pick. It's basically the same as yours. I
think Hellboy it's fascinating how like that universe is expanded, I think, in terms of how that character's been reinterpreted in kind of movies and novels, and there's a great too sure how you'd be able to get hold of it now, but they had these animated movies of the Hellboy cartoons, and I'm not too sure where they would be available now.
They used to be on Amazon, but that was like 4 to 5 years ago.
Well, those cartoons were really, really well done, and I think they probably the best adaptation of the Hellboy character. I think they're better than the movies there. So I think it's my choice next, and I've got to go with like the obvious one. I was struggling whether or not to include this because technically DC was the publisher at one point. DC / Vertigo, and it's Kurt Busiek's Astro City.
Oh yeah.
It's an American superhero anthology comic book series centered around the fictional city of Astro City. It's got it's just Busiek's kind of love letter to superhero characters and the variety of stories that superheroes can be involved in. And they've got their versions of the Fantastic Four, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Captain America, and there's just this deep well of mythology that is kind of readily apparent in the universe of the comics. It's been going on for years and years, and there's so many trade paperbacks. My recommendation for a really good kickoff point, and I think it's probably one of the finest superhero comics trade paperbacks I've ever read, is the second collected volume, which is Confession, which focuses on their version of kind of like a Batman street level character who forces confession. The name of the character is the Confessor, and it's just one of the finest superhero comics stories that I've read in like forever. So it's definitely one of those ones where I will go back and read them again. Yeah, Kurt Busiek's work. He's got various artists that worked on it, and I love the universe. I love the stories that he's written in there, and the art's superb, and Busiek's writing is fantastic as well.
I honestly feel bad that I forgot to put this on my list now, because I love Astro City. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
It is, it's incredible. It's like a very, I don't want to say realistic take, but it's like a very adult kind of, it's definitely more realistic. It humanizes the superheroes a lot more.
Yeah, and kind of, it's not adult in terms of like there's lots of like dongs and swearing and stuff like that. It's just more kind of a little bit more of a grown up look at.
Yeah.
Not mature is the wrong word, like sophisticated is the wrong word, but it's just really well done superhero stories that doesn't talk down to the reader.
Yeah, I really enjoy that stuff. Man, I need to get more of that. I think next I'll do... Man, I'm stuck between a few of these because I know I can't fit them all. I'm going to say Exo Manowar by Matt Kindt from Valiant Comics was one of the first series I started reading in single issues monthly, because I read for a long time just in graphic novels until I started reading monthly. And he's got various artists, but I know nothing about Exo Manowar, and I hazard to say that I still don't, even after reading this multiple times. But it's just a fantastic arc of, I guess it's a superhero. It's a sci-fi, like, space epic. It's him moving up the like military chains, and then there's it's okay. Now that I'm talking about it, there's some soap opera drama. There's some family stuff, some supervillains. It's very superhero-y, but it's Matt Kindt has a way of doing making mundane things super interesting, and kind of taking things that would be very, very insane and superhero-ish and turning them into kind of relatable things. Like Ether. I know you've read Ether.
Yeah. Matt Kindt is a fascinating writer. He's the breadth and of stuff that he writes about, and kind of the variety of stories that he tells. I think it's really interesting, but it's still got that same sort of like fingerprint on them, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. He works with a lot of similar themes too. Like I've only read, I think, by him, Department H, Ether, and this, I think, is all I've read by him. And there's a lot of same themes running through it. And he goes left when you think he's going to go right, and he kind of subverts a lot of the things that you think are going to happen. And I really enjoyed that. And
I really enjoy the fact that he goes super weird. Sometimes like really like, whoa, okay, yeah. So,
you have no idea what's going on sometimes, which I love. Yeah. And I will say the art for the very first and the very last arc of the run is by, I'm doing this off memory, so I think it's Tomas Giarello. Yeah. And he works in a very interesting way where it's only pencils. Oh, I should maybe not only pencils, but no inks. There is no ink in his drawing at all, and so it just looks completely different than anything you'll see. Pretty much anywhere, and I just love to look at it like that. But
cool. I've never, when I was growing up, I did see a lot of like Valiant comics. I think Valiant and Acclaim, I think they were they published comics at the same time at some point, and I never jumped to. So I saw, XO Man of War. There's Bloodshot. They've got their own entire superhero universe that I'm not familiar with at all. So it's probably worth checking some of those out as well, I think. So the next one that I've got on my list is Malibu Comics, the Malibu Comics universe. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with
I'm not.
these. Okay, so basically, it's kind of these were so it was a comic book universe that was made in the 90s, and they had. And the two comics I'm gonna pick out are basically Prime, which is basically if Shazam was given his powers by weird scientific experiments instead of
Okay.
like magic. So that's that. I enjoyed reading those, and Foxfire, which was a character that was created in a crossover with Marvel Universe. So Marvel eventually ended up buying Malibu Comics, and then subsequently did nothing with the universe, which I found. And I don't think any of the characters have crossed over into the Marvel Universe as well. So I think that's quite sad, because there are some interesting comics that they tell, that they interesting comic book characters that Malibu had created. So I'm just wondering, kind of with the expansion of the MCU and into the multiverse, if Malibu Comics might be making a comeback. They were quite big in the 90s. They had like cartoons and live action TV shows, but the two comics that I remember particularly reading, and it's been years since I've read them, are Prime and Foxfire. I quite enjoyed reading those two Malibu comic book series. But it's been years since I've read them, so I can't really go into too much detail about like the artists and the writers and stuff like that. But I do kind of have fond memories of those two titles.
I'm looking this up right now. I've never heard of any of this, but it looks
Yeah, it's
insane.
probably yeah. I mean, it's very much kind of like a lot of the titles were kind of like mimicking existing like Marvel, DC, Image titles at the time as well. So I think it's very much trying to do like the Image thing, where they're trying to create their own superhero titles and stuff like that. But I quite enjoyed those titles, and there is one sequence in one of the Ultraverse. That's what they call their universe, the Ultraverse, where they've got a weapon in there that I'm going to be stealing for one of my stories that I haven't written yet. So that's another reason to check and see if you can figure out which weapon it is that I'm going to use in one of my future stories. That all right? So yeah.
Like that. It was Foxfire was written by Ian Edgington and Dan Abnett, which are both still like great comic writers. I just have never heard of this before.
Yeah,
That is
It
so interesting.
was a weird short run comic that was created towards the end of the Malibu comic existence, really. But yeah, I quite enjoyed that.
That's nuts. Okay, I think I got one more here.
I've got a couple more. Well, two or three more. But yeah, let's get them.
I got a couple more if you got more. So
yeah.
I would just I'm gonna say this is a pretty popular one, but Black Hammer from the Dark Horse.
Yeah.
It's got to be on there.
Yeah. So I was thinking about including Black Hammer and Black Science. Because I think Black Science really is if the Fantastic Four were sociopaths, basically.
True.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it like that.
But yeah, Black Hammer is a fantastic superhero comic.
Yeah, there's like I don't even know what to say about it, because it's been like all over comics since it came out, and I guess it's died down maybe the last year, but it has been still just Jeff Lemire has been prolific. So Dean Ormston, Jeff Lemire from Dark Horse, Black Hammer. If you haven't heard of it, it's just like a great look at Silver Age superheroes. Well, it's all ages of superheroes probably, and through just a lens that you've never seen them through before, and it is beautifully illustrated. There's a lot of it. There's a mini series. There's a main series. I would recommend like every part of it. I have not read a bad Black Hammer book. If you don't want to dive into the main series, it's too long or something, just pick up a mini series. It's equally great. You don't need to know anything. They're awesome. There's not much else to say about them.
How many trade paperbacks are there in the Black Hammer? Because I think like on the 4th volume, where Black Hammer daughters finally able to enter the
Enter that
kind of
area.
yeah.
I don't. I think there's
Yeah,
4 or 5 because I have them in
yeah,
2 giant library
yeah.
editions,
Okay,
and then
yeah,
there's like 6 miniseries.
yeah. I haven't read any of the miniseries yet. They're
Oh, they're so
available
good.
on, again, shout out to Libby. I think all the Black Hammer trade paperbacks and side projects are available at least at Barnet Library on Libby. So yeah, give check those out if you can. So where was I? So I've done. Okay, so the next one is kind of quite an obvious one. Again, I wasn't too sure whether to include this because I think Vertigo maybe were the publisher at one point, and that's the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen
Oh yeah.
by Alan Moore, and it's basically I've got so my also corrects really funny on my note taking app. I've got pubic women Avengers. I think what that's meant to say is I think it's meant to say is public domain Avengers. I think
Oh,
because
you think so?
I think so. Yeah. So I don't know why it's corrected to the previous thing. So yeah, basically it's a group of public domain characters. You've got Mina Parker. You've got uh, Mr. Hyde, the Invisible Man. All these kind of like pulp Victorian era characters that are brought together to fight this great evil. And the first trade paperback is kind of conventional, but then it goes off into typical Alan Moore, really weird, esoteric territory, kind of about the nature of existence and legacy and the futility of trying to fight against certain forces as well. Various artists have worked on it as well, but yeah, it's Alan Moore doing superhero comics. I think it's probably the last set of superhero comics that he's done. So yeah, don't watch the movie because the movies are horrible. But
Oh
yeah,
God.
the actual comic book series are really good.
Yeah, I think that's one of his classic things. I actually haven't read all of it. There's so much of it, and I think he
Yes, I
finished
think
it like not
yeah,
3 or
I've
4
not
years
finished
ago.
it. I've not finished them yet either. So there's more to enjoy as well.
Like most Alan Moore comics, they are dense as hell. They take
Yes,
forever to read, which
yes,
is a good thing, I would say.
yeah. So
Um, I'm gonna throw up my last 2. I already have talked about on the show, but they're just fantastic. So I'm gonna bunch them together real quick. Um, I've talked about The Hero by David Rabin before.
yeah,
It is a Hercules story, but very much changed into, well, it already is a kind of superhero mythos take. Superheroes actually appear in the book, and it really connects the dots that were obvious, and you probably thought of about them before, of the hero's journey and how that relates to how Hercules and Superman are kind of the same in that aspect, and I think that fits. Also, Dark Horse. Basically, all my books are Dark Horse.
yeah,
And then Mr. Invincible, which we talked about
yes,
a couple months ago. I thought that was fantastic. It's not really like superhero stuff, but it's enough superhero stuff that I wanted to put it in this list just because
yeah.
it's amazing.
Okay, so I've got 2 more. I'll kind of quickly recap them as well. So my next one is Captain Underpants by Dave Pilkey. It's I've only read a couple of them. They're really funny. Chock full of jokes. Captain Underpants actually does gain superpowers in the second trade paperback that I read. So yes, they're really funny. He is a superhero, I guess.
I suppose, yeah.
That exists in that universe, but it's just a really great tale of friendships and gags and just silliness. And then my last one, I wasn't too sure if this counted as a superhero comic, but I'm including it anyway, and that's Concrete by Paul Chadwick.
Oh, yeah.
It's about a man that is abducted by aliens, and his consciousness is put into a concrete body. It's sort of like a reimagining of the Thing storyline from the Fantastic Four, but it's very much set in a universe where there are no other superheroes, and it's treated very seriously, and a lot of it's to do with how concrete copes living on Earth inside a body that's no longer human, and how various forces, like the military forces, pull on him and to do certain things, and how he struggles to find his place on a planet in which he no longer he's very much an outcast and no longer has a place where he fits in. And I think the series is unfinished, basically, and I don't think it will be finished, so it's a little bit unsatisfying when you read the complete concrete story, because you just think, well, where's the ending? But they're so well written. The characterization and the artwork are fantastic, and it's a kind of a brilliant sci-fi character study as well. So yeah, that's my last pick.
I've actually never read much Concrete. I think I started to get into it once.
Yeah, I think we've discussed it a little bit before, and I remember you saying you hadn't read much of it, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's been a minute since I've read it, but yeah, I think there's a really good kind of examination of how would you react if that sort of thing happened to you as well. So yeah.
I didn't actually know it wasn't complete. Like, it never had a concrete ending. Well, I didn't
That's
mean to make
my
that joke,
memory of it. I mean, because I read this was like 15, 20 years ago now when I originally read it. And the book said it was the complete concrete, which I'm, maybe in the subsequent period, more stories have been published. But when I read it, that was all the stories that they had. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we've decided here that some of the best superhero comics are just not superhero comics at all.
Yes, and well,
they're not huge fans.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a couple of big hitters that we've missed out. I think there's something called that Black Meridian or something. What's it called? Yeah, there's a couple of big hitters that we've kind of missed out. We haven't touched on much of the Valiant universe, and there's a whole Japanese superhero things that we've not touched on, like things like Astro Boy that I've read a few things of. But yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things that people probably say, oh, why didn't you list that? Why didn't you list that? But yeah,
can't read everything, sadly.
Yeah,
but it was nice. Let us know, guys, if you want us to do more lists, or if you'd rather just if you prefer the single graphic novel reviews. Either way is good for me. I like to do these lists sometimes because it just gives me like 5 to 10 new things to put in my list to read. Yeah. So it's nice to get some more stuff to read. But let us know what you prefer. Follow us on Instagram, See-Through Panel Podcast. Send your submissions over to seethroughpanel@gmail.com. What else am I forgetting? There's always so many things.
If you can donate to the podcast via a tip jar, the link should be included in the podcast description. And yeah, just get in touch, guys. And we've gotten a bit better at uploading the episodes onto YouTube, so you can definitely check us out on YouTube as well. And I'm not too sure when this episode is going to come out, but there's potentially some quite big things happening with my other podcast, Audio Bookish. So yeah, just check that one out as well.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, guys.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye.